All right, RJ, we are 1 day away from the Kraken's home opener against the Vancouver Canucks. Obviously, lots of emotions going into this. We're both very, very excited. Should be a really fun time. But, kind of looking ahead to the game itself, the on ice product, we got a little bit of news for the Kraken. Going to be a little bit of a different lineup than what we saw in those last couple games because Calle Yarncroke is back. He's apparently out of COVID protocols, going to be back into the lineup. You were at the morning skate this morning, kind of saw how he was doing, where he was going to slot in. Why don't you, fill us in?
Yeah, so Calle Yarncroke thankfully is back from COVID-19 protocol, and so far he's slotted in on the new look first line. So kind of putting him right into the thick of things, which is a good sign as far as how he's feeling and all of that. But the Kraken have gone with the same lines for each of the last 2 days of practice. Coach Haxtell said he didn't foresee a whole lot of change from that to what we're going to see in the game against Vancouver. So Yarncroke slotted in as right wing on a first line with Schwartz and Gord. So we got a Schwartz, Gord, Yarncroke, new look first line. Yarncroke also took his old spot on the second unit power play, which is good to see because they didn't really find a solid fit with anyone in that spot while he was gone. So I think that'll improve the second unit power play quite a bit. Looking on to the rest of the lines that I think it's probably pretty probable we're going to see for the home opener. The second line is Jared McCann playing left wing, Alex Wenberg at center, and Jordan Eberle at right wing. We talked in one of our ECH post game lives about the possibility of separating Jaden Schwartz and Jordan Eberle. It looks like the Kraken are going to try that out. And I like the look of that second line. I mean, it's kind of more balanced top six, and both of those units look good. The third line is Brandon Tanev at left wing, Morgan Geekie at center, and Jonas Donskoy on right wing. And man, I love that line. I mean, Geekie's scoring ability, we know what Geekie brings. Donskoy for the creativity, and Tanev just bringing endless energy. That's going to be a fun line to watch.
Yeah,
And yeah,
yeah, no, for sure. I'm really excited about that, and I am interested to see, you know, them splitting up Everley and Schwartz like that. I think, I don't know. Hopefully, it gets both guys going a little bit.
yeah, I mean that's what we'd like to see ultimately. And sometimes you need a little kind of change with things like that. Finally, the fourth forward line. This is similar to kind of what we've seen the last few games. Appleton, Sheahan, and Bastion. Those grinders down in the bottom six, taking care of business. We know what they bring. And moving on to the D pairs, we have pretty much a whole new set of D pairs, which probably warranted given the defensive performance the last couple games. So I think it's good that they've switched some things up. Starts off with the new first pairing of Giordano and Alexiak. That's one of the D pairs that we saw very early on in training camp, and I liked what I saw from those two. So I mean, you can't go wrong. That is a solid first pair. Second D pair, Carson Soucy and Vince Dunn. And I've got to say, I like this one. It kind of brings a little bit of everything you could want. Soucy's got the defensive ability. He can take care of things in his own zone. Of course, Dunn with that offensive skill, ability to break the puck out of his own zone. I'm curious what you think about that pair, Dylan.
Yeah, I really like it. Susie, he can move the puck too, so Dunn can kind of probably help out in the transition game while Susie hangs back and makes the outlet pass because Susie's shown that he's capable of that. I also like how mobile Susie is for a big guy. I think he can, that'll help when Dunn pinches up. Maybe Susie's got to work more towards the middle of the ice and potentially have to get back quick on his own. And I think Susie's going to be more suited to that than maybe Alexiak was.
Agreed. And then you have Jeremy Lauzon and Adam Larson as that third D pair. And it's kind of just the two pieces putting together. I don't know. What do you think? I know you're a big fan of Larson. I know we've kind of harped on Lausanne a bit this season. What do you think of that pair?
Yeah, I still want to see Borgen. I don't know why this is, not happening. I also thought Fleury had been playing well. Again, not sure why he's not in. I thought Larson had, a bad game that last game against New Jersey, and he was, everybody was bad against Philadelphia. So I kind of see maybe them wanting to push him down the lineup, but at the same time, he was like seeing the most ice time of all the defensemen. So, and I didn't think he was playing particularly bad. He was kind of good both sides of the ice. So, I'm I'm intrigued to see how much he's going to actually play, kind of being on what seems like the third pairing.
It's one where you could probably see someone else double shifting in that spot with Larson some of the game, whether it's Alexiak or Susi.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, what you see in this lineup, I think, is Dave Haxtell looking at some of the problems that they've had over the last few games and trying to make some changes to kind of directly address what has gone wrong, which hard to tell how it's going to turn out. But I kind of like generally that way of thinking and kind of how he's gone about it. Finally, looking in goal, have to imagine Philip Grubauer is going to get the start, right?
Yeah, I gotta think so, and he should bounce back. I think the rest and playing at home, all that kind of stuff. He's too good not to. But Seattle Kraken are only one part of this equation, right? They have to play somebody in this game, and of course they are playing the Vancouver Canucks, are what we're assuming is going to be our rivals to the north. So we know some about the Canucks, but we're not experts on them. So we thought we'd bring in an expert on the Canucks to kind of fill us in about things. And so we're gonna go ahead and transition over to that. And RJ, you can introduce us to your friend Lachlan.
So we have a special guest on the show today, Lachlan Irvine. He is a Canucks writer at Canucks Army, and he hosts two podcasts, the Crease Cast and Locked On Canucks. His Twitter handle is at Lock in the Crease. If you want to follow his Canucks coverage, the links for all that will be in the description down below. Now, fun fact, Lachlan and I used to be adult league hockey teammates. 4 years ago in Santa Rosa, California, we played together on a team called the Puck Hogs. Lachlan was the goalie. I was usually far away from his net scoring goals.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm sure RJ helped you a lot, right, with his back checking.
Oh,
Yep.
absolutely. He was the definitely. If I knew there was a defensive breakdown, it was RJ's fault, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I spent a whole lot of time in the D zone. Sorry about that, Lachlan. But he was,
I like taking shots.
yep. But he was a rockin' net for us. And now we're covering rival NHL teams. So welcome, Lachlan. How you doing? And first question: how long before you're announced as the Canucks emergency backup goalie? Because it's about time, right?
I mean, yeah, I'm waiting. The phone has not rung yet. It's a little, it's actually a little bit of a, as far as like media goes in Vancouver, there's a quite the glut of good goaltenders available. Like Kevin Woodley, who runs In Goal Magazine, is probably a much better option than I am, or Greg from Sportsnet 650. There we have quite a good goalie contingent in Vancouver, so I'm probably a little bit farther down the list, but I do have I've got the youth on my side. I'm same age as Brock Besser, so you never know. You never know if they ever need me. I will always make sure to bring my gear to the rink just in case.
Yep. Best to be prepared. And again, you got age on your side. You can wait them out.
Yeah.
So covering the Canucks, you've probably got a pretty good feel for fan sentiment north of the border. How do Canucks fans feel about, well, the Kraken coming into the league and about this rivalry that I think we all assume is going to get pretty intense?
Well, it's been an interesting little mix of things from Canucks Nation. I think the main point is the fact that I think a lot of people are excited to have an actual rival, like an actual geographical rival for the Canucks finally after 51 years in the NHL. Because look, Calgary is not real. Calgary, Edmonton, San Jose are like have been the rivals for most of that time, but they're not really really good. There's not really a solid rivalry between those teams other than the fact that they play each other a lot and they're in the same division. Because San Jose is obviously their biggest rivals are LA and Anaheim, so Vancouver's clearly far down their list, and obviously Calgary and Edmonton have each other in Alberta. So Vancouver is kind of out on its own. They have a lot of like rivalries with teams, but they're not really anyone else's main rival other than maybe like Chicago for that brief period in the early 2010s. So for Seattle to come in, I think everyone's excited to actually have a serious rivalry start up with somebody nearby, someone that the Canucks are actually going to be able to drive down the road to play rather than getting on a flight or changing time zones to go play. And also, obviously, there's also the fact that look, the Canucks haven't been very good for a very long time, and there's definitely been a lot of disdain for the team in the and how they've run things over the last 8 years or so. There was obviously that one good playoff run, but for the most part, there's definitely a very loud group of Canucks fans who have kind of just who feel like they might jump, who have been talking about jumping ship over to Seattle, starting fresh with the Kraken. Some of them are some of them are live in Seattle and just latched onto Vancouver beforehand, so they have that kind of aspect there. But yeah, there's an interesting mixture of people who are very much like who say they're done with the Canucks and ready to go move on and start cheering for the Kraken instead. We'll see how that actually goes, if how many of them actually follow through on that threat. Um, but yeah, there's definitely excitement in Vancouver about it.
Yeah, I mean that was kind of our next question was, the Canucks have kind of had this, the Pacific Northwest on lockdown. It's been their area. Now they have, rivals. Do you know of anybody specifically that's gone ahead and made that switch over?
I don't know anyone in any specific people that I just know I've seen a lot of tweets from people being like all like getting on board the Kraken bandwagon as they watch the Canucks lose like their seventh game in a row. Um and yeah, I think again, like I think honestly most people are excited about it. Like I would say even like the team itself and like from what I've heard with management, they're thrilled to actually have this opportunity because it's good, really it's good for everybody, the idea of having this kind of these games that actually are going to start mattering pretty quick um is only makes the brands and the actual like hockey and the value of hockey like stronger. So yeah, I think most people are again just excited to have a team at all, like to have the team in Seattle at all. And frankly, it's crazy that it's taken this long. It was just a matter of, getting the arena, getting the people who wanted to run the team. Yeah, it's just honestly, it's just great for the sport of hockey in general that we're gonna get this.
Yep. Now, moving on to the Canucks this season, they're currently 2-2-1, which isn't a great record, but like the Kraken, they've yet to play a home game. So, from what you've seen so far, how would you assess the Canucks so far this season? Where do you think they're going to end up? Are they a playoff team? That's the big question.
So at the beginning of the season, my hottest take about the Canucks was that I felt they were strong enough to finish second in the Pacific. Specifically because I felt a lot of teams in the Pacific were either, they're rebuilding, like the California teams are all kind of in the middle of rebuilds. They're getting like some of them, like LA, I would say, is getting better pretty fast, but they've still got a ways to go. But yeah, and then there are teams like Calgary and Edmonton who I felt actively made themselves a little worse. So I really thought that the Canucks were going to make a good push, are going to make a good push for the Pacific Division, and that the Kraken would probably be pretty close in that conversation as well. Um, but so far what I've seen has not brought me a lot of confidence in that statement anymore. Specifically, you look at situations where they got outplayed by the actively tanking Buffalo Sabres. You look at the fact that even last night against Chicago, like they won, but they were not the better team. They didn't play. They were out hustled for most of that game. The reason that the Canucks have the points that they do so far, more or less, has been the fact that Thatcher Demko is standing on his head and playing like Vezina caliber hockey for them right now. And you can't like you can get a lot of places on that, but you can't win championships. You can't really win playoff series based on that alone. You need to be able to have the horses to pull through. I think the Canucks have it in in their capabilities to do that. The problem is right now I'm not seeing the compete level from them, and that concerns me going forward when you start to play some much better teams than the Red Wings, the Sabres, and the Blackhawks.
Yeah, for sure. Um, Obviously the Canucks, they made a lot of moves this offseason. Jim Benning was busy, which I know is kind of a mixed bag. Um, Kind of take us through some of the moves they made and kind of how those new faces are settling in with this team.
So obviously the big deal this year was the Oliver Ekman Larson and Connor Garland acquisition, trading uh, three of our most interesting contracts in terms of Jay Beagle, Antoine Roussel, and of course Louis Eriksson, for multiple first liners on the Coyotes now apparently. Um, and that the OEL has been someone the Canucks have gone after for what, like, going back to last season. They famously spent way too much time trying to get an Oliver Ekman-Larsson deal done, and because of that, they lost out on Tyler Toffoli and Troy Stetcher and others in that mix, and Chris Tanev as well. So it was interesting to see them go back to that again and try it. And again, the Canucks are a team that very much needs to be in the playoffs, or at least management feels they need to, because they're very much on the hot seat right now, especially after how bad the Canucks were last year. So far, OEL has looked a lot better than I was anticipating, which is good, because I was pretty worried about his speed and his ability to keep up with the play. And he's looked actually quite good. He's looked a lot closer to the Oliver Ekman-Larsson that he was at his peak in Arizona. But the biggest pickup from that was Connor Garland. Connor Garland has been awesome. He's clearly the prize out of that trade. And he brings a level of compete and like that agitation level mixed with being able to actually put the puck in the net that the Canucks have not had in quite a while. I would say even going back to when Alex Burrows was on the team, and that's, it's been a while since then. And yeah, that was their biggest acquisition. They tried to stem the defensive side of things. They actually got a lot of depth signings done. But very quickly, that depth is dissipated with Zach McEwen getting claimed off waivers by Philadelphia. I'm blanking on who the other guy that they lost on waivers is right now. But either way, they've lost guys who they thought they could get
Gadjevich, I think.
That's right. It was Gadjevich, the Sharks. That was a bummer as well. And then they've spent a lot of money on guys like Tucker Poolman, who for I don't know why they spent that money. He has come about as I expected with Tucker Poolman, unfortunately. And then the biggest one being the fact that they gave Travis Hamonic an extension, and he is not here. Luckily, their cap hit is not affected right now. He's counted for 0 because of he's technically suspended without pay. But the fact that they gave him the contract at all is kind of damning. And yeah, overall, like, the forward group is definitely improved. They got Vasily Podgolzin over from Russia, their big 10th overall pick from a few years ago. He's been pretty good so far. The forward core is definitely a lot better. The defense is not. The defense is very clearly is just as mediocre as it was before. They have a great left side. The right side is full of question marks.
Yep. So still a lot to figure out, I guess, with the team. But so for those watching who are maybe newer to hockey, and maybe this is the first time they'll be seeing Vancouver play, can you give us a player on the Canucks to look for who does something special, and kind of tell us what he does that makes him someone that's worth looking for maybe a newer fan watching the game?
Well, I guess if we want to go like real like full roster with it, not necessarily like the hidden gem sort of route, I get like the obvious first player that you got to look at when you're watching the Vancouver Canucks is Elias Pettersson. He's had a little bit of a slow start to the year, but part of that is the fact that there was tense contract negotiation going on the entire offseason into the preseason. He ended up only playing 2 preseason games after signing his contract literally a week before the season started. It's a bridge deal for 3 years. But he is a true generational talent of a hockey player. He was so good right out of the gate from the moment he stepped on NHL ice. He's really brought new life into the organization as far as like his ability to make plays and to have like these Pavel Datsyukian-esque dekes where in the offensive zone. He's such a smart hockey player. Everything you'll see about him, especially like just the wizardry he has with when he's stick handling with the puck is unlike many players in the league. And yeah, he last year he had a tough year. He had a bit of a tough year. Really, like quite honestly, like some of the most unlucky in terms of like how many posts he hit last year. I think he hit like a record or something. There was like a there was actually like a stat somebody was checking, and he was he was getting so unlucky with shots just clanging off the post and out, just barely from going in. And then he ended up dealing with an injury that kept him out of the last 30. But he is, you will notice him every time he's on the ice. He brings that kind of a presence to the Canucks. And when he's at his best, he is borderline unstoppable. He is very, very good. I think also you could throw in there Thatcher Demko as well. Like I mentioned, he's been playing at the top of his game. I really believe that he's going to be in the conversation as far as like some of the best goalies in the NHL. Uh, if all goes as planned, obviously with the Canucks, plans go out the window very fast. But yeah, Thatcher Demko has been a rock for this team for quite a while, and I think we're getting to the point where if he keeps up at the way he's going, he's going to be considered in the same conversation as guys like Andrei Vasilevsky, like Connor Hellebuck, like Carey Price. I think he's going to get into that conversation pretty quick. And yeah, he has been the best player on the Canucks so far this season. And I think that's going to continue well into this year.
Yeah, let's just hope he doesn't play that well when they're playing Seattle. Um, Obviously, Seattle is an expansion team. We stole players from everybody, Canucks included, when we took Cole Lind in the expansion draft. But he's also not the only former Canuck on this team. Jared McCann actually was drafted by the Vancouver Canucks and started his NHL career there. Could you just kind of maybe tell the Seattle Kraken fans watching this a little bit about Cole Lind and Jared McCann from their times in Vancouver?
Well, yeah, I guess I'll start with Jared McCann because honestly, like his trajectory and like the way his career has gone has changed so much from when he was with the Vancouver Canucks that I honestly don't know if I've looked at the same player really. Like the player you guys are getting in Seattle is very different from the one I saw in Vancouver. There were discussions at the time, about locker room stuff that just he did not. We'll say he didn't mesh well with the Canucks as a rookie, and that's a lot of the reason why they dealt him to Florida for Eric Goodbranson. Obviously, even with that stuff, it was pretty clear that was trade was going to age pretty poorly. And yeah, it hasn't. It as the years have gone on, it's gotten worse and worse. It's yeah, McCann is a player who in an alternate universe they give a little bit more time to. They actually try and nurture his way through the NHL, and they maybe still have him today, and he's still part of this, and he's still part of like the core group, or maybe they've moved him on for just somebody different at that time. Who knows? But yeah, the difference between what Vancouver Canuck Jared McCann is and Seattle Kraken Jared McCann is gonna be is so different. And yeah, it's too bad they didn't hang on to him a little bit longer. And in a way that's kind of similar with Cole Lind, not to like the exact same degree, but it's the case of where Cole Lind did not get really a good look at the NHL with Vancouver. It was very quickly. I think he ended up getting. I think he only had 3 games with the Canucks last year. Those were his first 3, and that was it for him. And it came down to the fact that the Canucks actually had started quickly put together at an actually decent forward like core and an actual forward list worth protecting. Had they not brought in Jason Dickinson, had they not brought in Connor Garland, I think there's a chance that Cole Lind is probably still a Vancouver Canuck right now. But the fact of the matter is, they didn't really feel that he had cemented a spot in terms of the long term future. He was doing okay. He was doing pretty well in Utica last season, and doing pretty well, or like sorry, the season before I should say. He was on the taxi squad for most of last year. He had been doing pretty well at the AHL level for most of that time, the time he was here. But it never got to the point where he was considered just an absolute, oh, we need to get this guy into games. We absolutely need to find this guy a role, because the role that he plays is just kind of not there with this group anymore. And I think that down the line he could be an okay hockey player. I think still like probably more likely, bottom six depth. He's going to be a decent. He could be a decent fit. Um, but overall, it's a matter of the Canucks maybe not being patient enough with the guys that they drafted and that they scouted. And right now, and it's going to be interesting to see if Seattle ends up bearing the fruits of the Canucks' labor here.
Yeah, I mean, we sure hope so. But that's gonna do it for this interview. Thank you so much, Lachlan, for joining us. Do you want to give a quick reminder to everybody about where they can find you and your work?
Yeah, you can find me my writing work at CanucksArmy.com. I just started there pretty recently, so I'm pretty excited about that. You'll get a lot of content from me there if you go check it out. I also do two other podcasts. I do the Crease Cast with my co-host Cody Sievertson every Monday and Thursday right now. And then I do Locked On Canucks with Nick Bondi, or well, I will be doing it with Nick Bondi until Wednesday. This is his last week, but yeah, we do that show Monday to Friday. So yeah, go check that out as well.
Yeah, awesome. Everybody go show Lachlan some love, even though, technically the enemy, whatever. Um,
Technically.
technically. But it's going to be really fun to see these two teams go at it tomorrow night for the first time ever. Hopefully, we establish that rivalry with you guys, and the future will be bright for hockey in the Pacific Northwest. But for now, that's going to be it for this video. Thanks everybody for joining us. Make sure to like, as always, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we will see you next time.